Today we're going to check out some of the sickest 90s comic art ever produced. We're going to analyze, dissect, and reverse engineer and see what we can learn from those old masters, how we can implement some of their techniques into our own art styles. And take it from me, leveling up your skill set while developing a unique style really is the name of the game, because outside of being independently wealthy or just like kissing all the right butts, nothing will give you leverage in the comic book industry quite like some hard-earned beast mode skills. But first, we gotta put in the work. We have got to practice. And in all honesty, it does not have to be as stale and boring as your high school art teacher may have made it seem.
And once you have failed at life, you can become an art teacher like me and ruin the lives of other young artists.
I always try to find ways to make the whole eat your veggies thing as palatable as possible, because if you can make your training fun, you will be a lot more likely to stick with it. And that is how you accomplish your goals. I'm definitely one of those guys who learned to draw the wrong way, which basically entailed tracing Ninja Turtles as a little kid, then graduating to copying them until I soon found that I could draw them out of my head. And I would say that tracing and copying is actually a very useful way to learn, as long as it's balanced with a healthy study of the fundamentals. The funny thing is, you'll start to notice that boring fundamental stuff just about everywhere in the exciting comic book art that you love so much. Like this stupid sphere shading exercise. As it turns out, it's pretty much useful everywhere. It's just a way of understanding what light looks like when it's wrapping around form.
And while light wrapping around a sphere isn't much to look at, applying these principles to more complex forms can be incredibly rewarding.
And I would say that those shadows with their smooth transitions from dark to light, indicated with hatching, is one of the things that made that 90s art so absolutely gorgeous.
I always had a hard time getting excited about that stupid sphere, but it was much easier to get hyped about the art from my comic collection, especially stuff like this insane pit drawing by Del Keown. I think Keown is a great artist to learn from. He was one of the best at stylized anatomy and crosshatch rendering. I'd recommend grabbing some more realistic reference to match up with the crazy stuff you find in your comics, then start figuring it out for yourself. So first, we're going to go ahead and exaggerate the heck out of this anatomy. And once you really understand the structure, it's just about dropping in those core shadows where they should be, and then hatching out from there to create the midtones. And I've heard people say that you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't copy other artists like this, but I always had so much fun just finding badass drawings like this and going to town, doing my best to try and recreate that. And I always had a ton of fun doing that, and I always learned something. I always leveled up my skills that way. So I guess, agree to disagree. You'll definitely want to balance this stuff with other exercises. You want to be able to draw the entire figure, not just the fun parts, But definitely spending some time working on these things, drawing those cool looking arms, understanding all of the shading that goes into that, how to cut some veins into those structures to just make it all look cool. I think that can add a lot to your work. And once you've done that for a while, you can start doing these exercises out of your head a little bit, seeing how that stuff is going to look like coming straight from your imagination. So, and it's weird, it's like you'll see your own, this signature that comes from your subconscious, or at least that's kind of how I see it. And as you see, my subconscious signature is pretty weird looking. So, and I'm proud of that. If you're interested in adapting some of that 90s flair into your art style, you're very likely going to be working with a lot of detail, and that presents some real challenges. One of these was addressed by the great Greg Capullo, and it has always stuck with me. He said something about keeping things loose. Detail tends to have a tightening effect, especially if you like to go in and define every little muscle striation. His advice, as I remember it, was to gesture draw, keep your thumbnails loose, and maintain that energy as you go in and add the details. Avoid quote-unquote fixing the anatomy as you go. The figures actually look much better stretched into impossible poses that favor dynamism over realism. This will drive the online art critics insane, which is great because they are soulless demons here to suck the fun out of life. Now, just kidding, you gotta listen to the critics, guys. Listen to the critics, that's one of the best ways to level up. Just know that every time you get your feelings hurt online by some random person who's, critiquing your art, that's a good thing. It sucks. I'm a very sensitive person myself. I always get my feelings hurt, but I have found even if someone is really just kind of going after you, like they're not trying to be constructive, you can still learn stuff from the insults they throw at you, I guess. And so this is a look at how I do my own thumbnails, keeping things very loose and full of energy, but also keeping in mind, I want the figures, the anatomy, all that stuff to be fairly accurate in this stage. In fact, as accurate as possible, because I'm actually going to stick very close to these loose thumbnails in my final drawing. In fact, if I do my job right here, the rest of the drawing is just going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be kind of mindless detail going on top of a pre-made structure that's nice and loose and full of energy. Another huge aspect of 90s style is exaggeration. Everything was so over the top, so stylized, so unusual, and that adds a ton of visual interest to everything. A lot of this comes from foreshortening and hitting angles, but it's also about injecting your own personality into the work and adding in all the necessary details. Like, Wolverine doesn't just enter a room. He smashes the door off the hinges and rips his shirt off in a diagonal upshot. And just take a look at this sequence with Juggernaut. High-level storytelling, exaggerated to the max. Stephen Platt broke into the comic industry as a teenager and quickly established himself as one of the most reckless comic artists of the day. He brought exaggeration, gesture, and rendering to new levels of insanity. And for those of us with an appreciation for that sort of thing, it was an absolute joy to behold. And no one had quite the impact on me as an artist that Stephen Platt did. So I guess in the end, you have to ask yourself, what are you doing all this for? Are you in it for the self-expression? Do you want to bring the storms brewing in your subconscious to life on the page? Are you in it for the connection? Do you want to create works that infect your audience with wonder and excitement? Or are you in it to appease the online art critics or impress your old teachers? I really doubt too many of us give much a crap about that. So I think it's safe to just move on and make peace with the fact that the internet is full of people who will delight in telling you how you're doing it wrong. Just remember, you can find plenty of those joyless critics tearing down all of the most popular artists of our time. So don't take it to heart when they come for you. It's just what they do. Now, I don't want to skimp on the Stephen Platt art, but I am working on a full video just about him, so I'm going to save a lot of the juicy stuff for later.
A solid grasp on the fundamentals is a means to an end, not the goal itself, which is why some artists become technical masters in their field, but fail to create any kind of meaningful connection with their audience. Unless your entire goal is to impress your old art teachers, you're going to need to bring something more to the table. Just remember, all of these techniques, all of the fundamentals, they can be taught and learned through repetition. But your personal voice as an artist is something that you're going to need to find within yourself. So, learn your fundamentals, sharpen them every day, know the rules well, then spend all of your time finding new and exciting ways to break them.
All right, so let's take a look at my process as a half-baked artist who learned to draw from copying a bunch of image comics and stuff like that. And I'm just throwing in a bunch of loose gesture drawings to set up my composition here. Perspective also very, very important. We didn't really talk about it in this video. It's one of those things that can be very dry when you're learning it, but once you start getting a handle on it, like all of this stuff becomes very exciting. And it's been a ton of work to get here, but currently I have my own characters and I have a skill set that allows me to throw down on the art in the ways that I want to. So, you know, there have been a bunch of sacrifices that were well worth it, leading to where I'm at now. I also wanted to address my negative comments towards tracing in the last video. You know, for a channel that's supposedly about nuance, I sure was just like tracing bad, but there's a lot more to it than that. Obviously, it is a trick of the trade, and there are tons of ways that tracing will help you in your art. I think that you just need to make sure that your art is authentically you, and not just a bunch of 3D assets or, you know, whatever else. But also, I mean, it's not like really any of my business. I'm not the tracing police or whatever.
That's about all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope it's got you all just like hyped up, ready to draw, you know, ready to level up those skills, ready to make an impact, you know. So thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And if you do enjoy my content, please consider subscribing to the channel, sharing the videos with your friends, leaving the thumbs up, and you know, leave me a comment. You know, this channel is it's a small channel, so I tend to respond to all the comments. You know, I like chatting with you guys, and I do appreciate your feedback. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all again real soon in the next video. Peace.
Yeah.
you.